Caveman Psychology and Behavior. Directed hook. Imagine being trapped in a world where the sun is your only safety net. When it sets, everything changes. The sounds shift, the temperature plummets, and every shadow could be death in disguise. For early humans, darkness wasn't just inconvenient, it was life-threatening. And over tens of thousands of years, it rewired their minds and yours. In this video, we explore how the fear of the dark shaped caveman behavior, survival instincts, and even our modern mental patterns. Chapter 1. Part 1 of How Darkness Shaped Caveman Psychology and Behavior. Chapter 1. When the sun goes down, entering the danger zone. The moment the sun died. As the sun began its slow descent beyond the edge of the horizon, something deep inside early humans shifted. It wasn't just the temperature dropping, it was the certainty of control evaporating. The prehistoric world wasn't wired for comfort. There were no streetlights, no torches on command, no cozy caves waiting with dinner and a fire. When the sun dipped low, the world became unknowable. Every rustle in the tall grass could be a predator. Every branch snapping in the distance became a signal. Stop moving, stay silent, or die. To a caveman, the sunset wasn't a beautiful end to the day. It was the beginning of risk. The human eye evolved to work with daylight, not darkness. So when night came, their greatest survival tool, vision, was effectively stripped away. This wasn't just inconvenient. It was terrifying. The body knew it too. Cortisol, the stress hormone, would rise. Heart rates would increase. Movements became more cautious. Even speech patterns among tribes would change. Whispers instead of conversation, murmurs instead of laughter. Imagine being in a dense forest, miles from fire, where every sound becomes amplified. The creak of a tree becomes a predator's footstep. The wind, rustling the bushes, turns into imagined threats. That fear wasn't a flaw in their psychology. It was the reason they survived. The overactive brain that screamed danger at every crack or snap was more likely to keep its host alive than the one that thought probably nothing. This is when behavior shifted. At dusk, tribal members would begin to gather closely. Solo wandering became taboo. Mothers clutched their children tighter. Elders gave warnings with their eyes. The group instinctively moved toward shelter and light, aware that one step too far into the dark could mean disappearing forever. And this wasn't just a one-time event. This happened every night for thousands upon thousands of years. Enough time for the fear of darkness to become more than a response. It became a pattern, a permanent mark in the blueprint of the human mind. Chapter 1. Part 2 of How Darkness Shaped Caveman Psychology and Behavior. Chapter 1. When the sun goes down, entering the danger zone. Part 2. Behavioral shifts in the shadows. As darkness settled in fully, the psychological transformation deepened. The confident hunter of the day became cautious, even paranoid. Early humans learned, by trauma, by loss, by experience, that the night was not theirs. It belonged to something else. The predators, the unseen, the unpredictable. Movement slowed to a minimum. The tribe would cluster near fire if it was available, or huddle in natural shelters like caves or cliff sides. These weren't just places to sleep. They were shields against what lurked beyond visibility. And this fear wasn't irrational, it was accurate. Nocturnal predators like giant hyenas, leopards, and even other humans with bad intentions took advantage of the night. One wrong move meant becoming prey instead of predator. Silence became a social law after dark. Children were hushed. Stories were whispered. There was no singing, no celebrating. Those were reserved for daylight. It was a time for listening. Ears, not eyes, became the primary defense system. And in that stillness, imagination began to fill in the gaps. The brain started drawing threats in the dark where there may have been none, because doing so, even falsely, meant a higher chance of survival. Even the positioning of sleep was a strategy. Most groups didn't sleep scattered. They arranged themselves in circles or with the most vulnerable in the center. Elders and stronger males often took the outer edges, both to protect and to wake first if something approached. Sleep itself wasn't deep or peaceful. It was fragmented, shallow, and sensitive to the smallest of sounds. This behavioral shift wasn't a conscious decision. It was a biological adaptation. Over countless generations, those who froze when danger was sensed, who stayed close to others, and who feared venturing into the dark, they lived. The ones who wandered too far or ignored the warning signs, their genes didn't continue. Fear was not weakness. It was strategy encoded in flesh. The night demanded a different version of humanity, and that version was quieter, more watchful, and infinitely more vulnerable. Chapter 1, Part 3 of How Darkness Shaped Caveman Psychology and Behavior. Chapter 1, When the Sun Goes Down, Entering the Danger Zone. Part 3, Nighttime Rituals and the Birth of Patterns. As the dark hours stretched on, something deeper began to form: routine. Cavemen didn't just react to the night. They adapted through ritual. These rituals weren't religious at first. They were practical behaviors repeated for survival that eventually took on symbolic meaning. One of the most important nighttime rituals was fire maintenance. Whoever controlled the fire controlled life itself. It offered light, warmth, a perimeter of safety, and a psychological barrier against the unknown. Fire gave structure to darkness. Without it, the world was simply chaos. Early humans likely took shifts tending to the flame, not out of convenience, but necessity. If it died, panic would follow. Storytelling, too, was born in the glow of the fire. Whispered myths and warnings became a method to pass down knowledge. But more than that, they filled the dark with meaning. If every shadow held a monster, then stories gave those monsters a face and a name. This wasn't just entertainment. It was early education. A child who feared the night beast might be too scared to wander off at dusk and live because of it. Another ritual was marking territory. Some tribes likely surrounded camps with rocks, bones, or smoke as symbolic boundaries. These were not just barriers to animals. They were psychological fences. They reminded the group, this is where we are safe. That's where death begins. Even sleep had its cadence. Many anthropologists believe early humans didn't sleep in one long chunk like we do now. They slept in segments, 2 short sleeps with a period of alertness in between. That middle time was often used for checking on fire, speaking softly, or just staying still and listening. It was a built-in buffer against vulnerability. All of this, the huddling, the fire, the silence, the stories, weren't just responses to fear. They were survival habits etched into human behavior. Night after night, generation after generation, the darkness carved grooves into our instincts. And even today, you can feel it. That flicker of unease when you turn off the last light. That pause before stepping into a pitch-black room. That's not your imagination. It's your ancient brain remembering a time when the darkness could kill you. White heavy check mark, the end of Chapter 1.